Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is my review for The Bridge, Season 2, Episode 10, Eidolon, and I was really looking forward to this episode, obviously, really looking forward to it, because of the events of the last episode. You know, the last episode had that awesome cliffhanger that I loved. I loved the way last episode ended. You know, last episode was just an awesome ending, in my opinion. Like, the way they ended it was just perfect. I love the way last week's episode ended. And this week's episode, you know, I predicted that shit was going to go down, and it definitely did. Shit went down this episode big time. A lot of stuff happened in this episode. A lot of big things happened, and a lot to definitely talk about. A lot going on here. And, so yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen in the next episode, and this episode was just awesome. Loved it. By far best episode of the season. And really one of the great things about this episode is we've been building up to this intensity and, you know, so much intensity, and this episode had that. This episode was extremely intense. So much shit went down, and it was extremely hard to, you know, you know, there was just so much to process, really. So let's just get to it. So we see, so basically, we actually don't start with the aftermath, and I like that they did that, because, you know, a lot of shows, when someone dies, they do, like, this sad little, like, funeral scene. The Bridge did not do that. The Bridge did not do that. They actually didn't even do a funeral scene for, Charlotte. It didn't seem like they cared. Instead, we're actually taking to a flashback. Now, at first, I didn't realize it was a flashback, because I'm like, why is my screen blurry? I'm like, why is my screen blurry? And then I realized, oh, it's a flashback. So we're taking a few weeks back, and it's basically when Eleanor initially made her way in the U.S. with one of Fausto Galvan's men that she had killed, and we see why he was killed. Basically, he was killed because he made the fateful decision to sneak a peek into Eleanor's, basically, he just wanted to hook up with her. So she catched him in the act. He begins to blackmail her because she's clearly cooking the books, and he says he'll keep quiet in exchange for sexual favors, and she stabs him. He deserved it, honestly. That guy was a perv. He was just a perv, and honestly, that guy deserves it. Seriously, as much as we're supposed to dislike Eleanor, that guy deserved it. He really did. He was just a perv. He really was. He was just a perv who wanted to hook up with her. So then we go back to the present, and Monty arrives to Red Ridge View, and this time it feels much less ominous. Now, of course, that's how the episode ended, with, you know, that puddle of blood, and the way this was done was so well done. You're just seeing Monty's reaction to everything. He steps in this puddle of blood, and he has no idea what's going on. He finds Charlotte dead, and he goes upstairs to see Caesar and Eleanor, and they task poor Jamie with rounding up and transporting the bodies, while Monty takes Eleanor for an off-the-record doctor's visit to fix her wound, because she was severely wounded. Even though she got out of there alive, she was severely wounded. So Caesar, meanwhile, is left to find Hank and Eleanor's missing ledger. That's what he's sent to do. He's meant to do that. He's sent to do that, basically. So that's what happens there. So after this happens... So yeah, basically, after this happens, we see... What happened after this? Okay. Sonya and Marco. We have not seen them for a little bit of the episode. You know, we finally see them in this episode. They are so focused on stopping Galvan. That's what they need to stop. They need to stop him because of what happened to Sonya last week. Obviously, they don't want this to continue happening. Plus, Marco wants to prove to Sonya that she can trust him. He wants to prove that to her. So, they are not even thinking about eating and resting. You can tell that they are tired. They don't care. This is their main focus. Their priority is stopping Galvan. 100% that's what they care about, is stopping, you know, Galvan. That's what they care about. So, before things escalate, but only they don't realize how far things have already gone until they head to the police station. And Cooper informs them that the DEA and Hank were looking for her, and Sonya puts two and two together, and she and Marco rush out to Red Ridge. Now, when she found out, I'm like, okay, this episode's about to get extremely intense, because I like that everything was starting to connect here, because, you know, things have connected before on this show, but really this was the first time where the Red Ridge plot is really connecting, so that was huge. So then, of course, you know, last week's episode also ended with Hank severely injured. You know, we saw Hank open his eyes, we didn't know if he was alive, and as far as, you know, Hank goes, when he opened his eyes, we didn't know if he was alive, we didn't know if he was going to make it, and we see him still holding on to his life. He's crawling through the Red Ridge View property, and he tries to alert some construction guys, but they don't hear him. They're too busy doing construction shit, basically, because they're construction guys. They don't hear him. So Caesar hears Hank, and he clucks him in the head, and Hank regains consciousness, and Caesar says that he'll let Hank live if he gives up Eleanor's ledger. And Hank plays dumb. He says, what ledger? He obviously knows what he's talking about, but Hank's just playing dumb because he doesn't want to seem like he knows what they're talking about. So Caesar has no choice but to take Hank to Eleanor to handle. So the moment he did, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be good for Hank. I honestly thought someone else was going to die tonight. That's really what they were making it seem like. And I was on Twitter while this episode was going, and they said this episode was going to be extremely intense. I agreed. From here, it was, like, extremely intense after this. So Eleanor, meanwhile, is very worried about her ledger. It's her life, basically. And she tells Monty that. They drive to the doctor, and she also tells Monty that if she does die, she wants to be burned to protect her from the demons and then buried under a tree. As creepy as that is, I understand why that she wants to be cremated, basically. Now, Monty doesn't have to worry about that quite yet because he arrives to an abandoned warehouse, and a doctor operates and ends up saving her. She wakes up startled, and against doctor's orders, wants to get straight back to business, which is sure to happen since Caesar arrives with Hank soon after. You know, that's happening right away. Like, it seems like that happens suddenly. You know, she suddenly wakes up, and there was actually this moment in the episode where you don't know if Eleanor's gonna live or if she's gonna die. I knew they obviously weren't gonna kill off Eleanor. I knew that for a fact. I'm like, there is no way they're killing her off this early. We're only on episode 10. We have 3 episodes to go. There's no way they're going to kill her off this early. However, because of how intense this episode was, I didn't really know what they were going to do, and when she woke up, I was like, okay, I like where this is going, definitely. I thought that was definitely very well done. So, Sonya and Marco, they arrive to Red Ridgeview, but by then, the bodies are gone. They have disposed of them. I don't know where they went to, but they've disposed of them. So they see Hank's blood trail, which eventually leads to nowhere. They're looking at the blood trail, and it leads to the middle of nowhere, basically. So Sonya feels very guilty for not being there. Obviously, though, it's not her fault, because she was kidnapped, and that they easily, you know, she can't blame herself for doing that. And I understand why Sonya's upset, obviously, because she thought that she would be able to stop it, but the thing is, Sonya was kidnapped. This was all Galvan's plan, to get Sonya away from this, so this attack could happen. That's why this happened. So, because if Sonya and Marco would have been there, there's no way this would have happened. There's no way this kind of damage could have been caused. That's why Galvan and Eleanor are such geniuses. By the way, there is no Galvan this whole episode. It's basically just Eleanor, and I thought that was actually very well done, because we haven't really seen Sonya and Marco interact with Eleanor. We've seen them focus on trying to catch Galvan, but not so much, Eleanor, and I thought that was definitely very well done. We saw a lot more of Eleanor in this episode. Definitely, that was really good. So, Sonya, as I said, I do really feel bad for her, because she really wanted to be there for them. Even though she knew she couldn't, she wanted to be there for them. So they easily deduct that the use of machine guns isn't Eleanor's style. They know this isn't her handiwork. It's not. She's not the one that did this. It was, you know, we know what happened. The police officers came, they shot at them, and then, you know, Galvan had ordered that attack there, they shot at them, like, a whole bunch of shit went down, basically. That's what happened. So then they get a call, and they found a truck full of bodies, and it's quite a scene. We see one family, and they're driving behind Jamie's truck, and blood begins spilling out from the back, and they're just, like, in shock, this family. This family's like, I mean, you got, like, these 2 kids in the back seat just looking at, like, holy shit, that's, like, with, you know, they have, like, their mouth open and everything, and that was just, like, crazy. I was like, wow, this episode's going really far, definitely. So then Sonya and Marco, they arrive at the scene, and they quickly check through them, and Sonya's relieved that Hank isn't one of the dead bodies, thank God. Because here's the thing. For all she knew, Hank could have died. She knew Hank's blood trail was there. Hank could have died. And I really felt bad for Sonya in this episode. I really did. But again, it's not her fault. She was kidnapped. She couldn't help it. So Marco sees Charlotte and regrets that not listening to her when she had tried to confide in him about the problem she had. Because if you remember, she tried to talk to him about helping her with, you know, about him helping her with her situation, and he really didn't listen to her. So Marco feels very remorseful because of this. And here's the thing I liked. They did not do this in any, like, sort of big way at all. they made this as, okay, Charlotte's dead, we need to improve with this. Because here's the thing with Charlotte, she was a big death, but there was no time for a funeral. You couldn't do a funeral in this episode and still have all the action that was going on. There just wasn't time for a funeral, and I was actually fine that there wasn't a funeral. At first, I'm like, why aren't they doing a funeral? But then I'm like, you know what? I like where they're going. I understand why they're not doing a funeral. It's fine if they don't do a funeral. I have no issues with that. If they don't want to do a funeral, they don't have to. So, the bodies also include, Galvan's, the bodies also include Galvan's men, because they were shot, and they realized that Eleanor must have betrayed Galvan with Cerisola, and Galvan hit back at them, which is true. You know, that's what she did. She betrayed Galvan, and, he attacked them in the process, so... They then speak to Jamie, and for once, Sonya is actually the skilled interrogator. She gets, you know, most times it's Marco that speaks to people, but Sonya actually is interrogating him very nicely. You know, she gets Jamie to happily tell where Eleanor is, and Jamie had it written on his hands, and off they go. So, meanwhile, Daniel is back at work. He's not supposed to be. You know, Daniel's not supposed to be back at work. He was, you know, the whole reason he left was because he has the drug problem, so he's not supposed to be back at work. He's just there to visit Adriana to ask if they're still partners. She kind of brushes him off, but when he tells her about the Red Ridge Massacre, she's back in. So they head over there, but the police have barricaded the place. And it's a good thing, though, because they see a certain CIA agent leave. Now, this is the same CIA agent who had been hiring assassins to keep people involved in the Quintana case. So they decide to follow him to a diner. He meets two high-ranking CIA agents, and they both definitely look like his bosses. Now, they're very disappointed with how messy the situation has become, and they also ask about Fausto Galvan. And he tells them that Galvan is done with, you know, that Galvan is done with. So now it's his job to secure an agreement of sorts with a big cartel leader who must be very persuadable, and to take care of Galvan once and for all. So basically, they're almost done with taking care of Galvan. He's not dead yet, but they have him where they want him. So the CIA has something very, very bad going on, and Daniel and Adriana witnessed the meeting, but miss out on the conversation. So, you know, they might be able to put this in, you know, their newspaper article, and, you know, people will find out about this. So I think it's definitely going to be interesting for them, you know, if this ends up happening. I don't know what's going to happen so much with Daniel and Adriana, but Daniel seems to be clean and sober. He does. He seems to be better. He doesn't seem to be, you know, as... He's still funny. He's still Daniel. He's always going to be, you know, witty and funny, but he seems to be back to his old self. That's what it seems like to be at this point. So then the CIA may think he's done with, but Fausto Galvan is still pulling his own strings. He receives... This is the only scene we see Galvan in. And again, I like that they only show Galvan in one scene. He receives word that Eleanor is still alive, and he decides to change the strategy. He takes Sebastian's troubled daughter hostage. You know, the daughter that we saw in the beginning of the last episode. I thought that, you know, in the beginning of the, you know, last week's episode, he takes her hostage. That he takes her along and he kidnaps her, basically. So, I thought that was really awesome when that happened, because it's like, now he's getting his revenge on Cerisola, because Cerisola betrayed him, so now he's getting his revenge on him, essentially. So Caesar arrives to the warehouse with Hank, and Eleanor insists that the doctor help Hank so that Eleanor can ask him the whereabouts of her ledger, because she wants to know who her ledger is. And Monty, seeing that they have kidnapped a police lieutenant, leaves before the situation gets him in trouble as well, because he doesn't want to be in trouble. So then we see Hank, and Hank is actually in pretty good condition. He's in pretty good condition, but he is unconscious. He, you know, he's doing fine, but he's unconscious. Luckily, he's not dead. I didn't think they were going to kill off Hank. He's a huge character. Eleanor demands that the doctor revives him, even if the adrenaline could kill Hank, but she doesn't care because she only needs to talk to him for a short moment to find out where her ledger is. Now, the moment where she said, I'm not going to use this needle on him, I mean, I was like, okay, is Hank going to die? And, that's not what ends up happening. You know, he didn't die, basically. We'll talk about why in a second. But basically, the doctor hesitates giving Hank the shot, and she says, look, you don't... And I love what Eleanor says. She says, you inject that in him, I inject this in you. And she grabs a syringe, injects Hank, it takes a moment, but he wakes up, and she asks Hank about the ledger. And all he says is, go to hell. He does not want to tell her anything, because he doesn't trust her. She kidnapped him. What does she expect? So, she starts torturing him very brutally. She pushes a finger into one of his wounds. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Seriously. That's just like... That is torture there. Now, the torture does not seem to be working. Hank refuses to give the location of the ledger. Eleanor, like Galvan, has gone with a different strategy. She takes out Hank's wallet and tells Caesar that they're going to head out to Hank's home to threaten his wife. And Caesar warns her that they can't do that because it will eliminate any discretion they have left. But Eleanor doesn't care, ends up threatening Caesar's kids so they can carry Hank out and leave. That's their plan. It's basically to, basically they're not going to be able to do this. But Eleanor, she doesn't really care. She ends up threatening Caesar's kids no matter what. So I thought that was just very big what's going to happen there. I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen. And, yeah, that's definitely very big. So definitely Eleanor is going after Hank. Now, let's talk about Sonya and Marco. I love the way this episode ended with this scene. It was just such a good scene, in my opinion, the way it ended. I love the way it ended. Because the way it ended was awesome, in my opinion. Basically, Sonya and Marco arrive. They see Eleanor and people leaving. And they're chasing them. And they see them there, and again, they have not really had an actual confrontation with Eleanor. So I thought this scene was very cool. And then their car crashes. Both of their cars crash, and they get out of their cars. Eleanor stumbles out of her car, and Sonya's pointing a gun at her. The moment she says, I'm like, no, do not do this. You have no idea what Eleanor is doing. You have no idea what she's capable of. She almost killed Hank. Don't do this. Eleanor looks at her. I thought Eleanor was going to do something seriously bad to Sonya, but instead she just collapses. So, basically, that's how the episode ended. She just collapsed. It's like, what? She just, collapsed after that. So they now have Eleanor in custody, and the question is, what new information will she divulge? That's the question, is what kind of new information are they going to get from her, and what exactly is going to happen there? So, I'm very interested in what's going to happen there. Overall, though, this episode was amazing, but I do want to talk about a few things. First of all, Daniel and Adriana, they have new information, definitely. They're going to probably tell Sonya about this, definitely. They're going to tell Sonya about this because she wants to know Galvan's whereabouts, obviously. So, basically, the CIA agents, they're after Fausto, Galvan, and it's going to be interesting to see if, who they, here's the other thing I'm wondering. Since Charlotte is dead and the other DEA agents are dead, who are they going to appoint to help them find Galvan? Because Charlotte was supposed to help them find Galvan, which she did, but she died in the process, and now they've lost Galvan again. So now they're going, they have Galvan where they think they need him. It seems like they're going to go after him, but judging on what happened in the last episode, they're not going to succeed. There's no way, and if Daniel and Adriana get involved in this, I'm going to be very worried, because if Daniel and Adriana get involved, I'm pretty sure they're going to die if they get involved, because if Daniel and Adriana end up getting involved in this, it is not going to be good for them. It's going to put them in a whirlpool of shit. It is not going to be good for them at all. And if they get involved, I hope they don't, because I don't want them to die. I like Daniel and Adriana. I don't want them to die. And, I feel they're getting themselves a little bit too involved in this. They have a lot of information, but they're still onto something. Definitely, they're still onto something, and that's something going to be interesting to see what happens there. So, Galvan, meanwhile, what is he going to do to Sebastian's daughter? What is he actually going to do to, Cerisola's daughter? Obviously, Cerisola betrayed him, so I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. That is definitely going to be very interesting. Hank. Hank, obviously, is very scared of Eleanor. She's obviously going after him. She threatened Caesar's kids and everything, so Hank, I don't know what he's going to do. I'm pretty sure he's going to tell Sonya what happened. Now, Sonya and Marco, I'm pretty sure now that they have Eleanor where they need her in custody, they're going to interrogate her a little bit, ask her some questions, that sort of thing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where the next episode's going to go, because I really think in the next episode we're going to start to find out more about Eleanor. They're actually going to have a genuine conversation with Eleanor, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Definitely, I'm really looking forward to that. The mysteries of her ledger is partly revealed, but I feel like next week she's going to find out who her ledger is. All she really knows right now is, she doesn't really know too much right now, really. She doesn't know too much, so, she still wants to know who her ledger is, and that's really all she wanted to talk to Hank about, and Hank didn't really give her any, advice, really. He didn't really tell her anything, and, she didn't tell him, so the question is Caesar actually going to kill Hank's wife? I don't know if he's going to, but we'll have to see what happens there, because I don't think he will, but I don't know. Knowing Eleanor, she is determined, when she's determined to do something and she wants something done, she will go to extreme lengths to get it done. We saw that last week, we saw it again this week, Eleanor's going to go to extreme lengths to get something done. When she wants something done, it's getting done, like, right now. There's no questioning about anything. It's getting done now, and there's no doubt about it. There's nothing that's saying, oh, no, this we can wait a little bit. No, this is getting done now. If you are appointed by Eleanor to do something, it's getting done now. There is no question about it. But overall, I love this episode. This episode was extremely intense. I mean, just so much great intensity, and I love that everything is really just starting to get more and more intense as this story goes on, really. The CIA agents think they're after Galvan. They're not. Galvan is somewhere completely different. Galvan is with Cerisola's daughter. We don't know what he's going to do to them, but if the CIA agents get involved, they're going to probably die. Daniel and Adriana, I have a feeling something's going to happen to them, considering that Galvan and his men almost killed Adriana's girlfriend, so I mean, obviously, that definitely shows that they're going to possibly go after them. Eleanor, I think we're going to find out who her ledger is in the next episode. We kind of found out, but we don't really. What is she going to do about Hank? Again, I feel like if she wants something done, she's going to go to extreme lengths to get it done. And Sonya and Marco, definitely they're going to question her. They're going to find out what happens. And also, is Hank going to give information about Eleanor to Sonya and Marco? Because I really feel he's going to. Even though Sonya doesn't really trust Hank right now, I feel like slowly she's going to get trust back from him. It seems like that's what's going to happen there. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys in my next video, which will be my review for, I guess, Girl Meets World. Because I'm not reviewing Big Brother for you guys this week because it's pointless. But let me know what you guys saw of this episode. Awesome episode, in my opinion. Just really awesome stuff going on in this show. Really, every episode gets better and better and better. And it just was such an intense episode. Really, it was awesome. I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.